This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Coming up on this broadcast, veteran grain and livestock analysts weigh in this week. Hello, everyone. We welcome you to This Week in Agribusiness. Mr. Pearson, there's a lot of ground to cover over the next hour.
There is a lot of things happening in the world of ag.
We got to sit down just a few days ago with Jerry Gulke, who has analyzed the grain markets for probably better than 40 years. It's always good to get perspective on things such as the Planting Intentions Report. There was that report that came out this week. Jerry put it in perspective of how much it matters.
Well, you know, they've had a tendency to be wrong sometimes, and times change. Weather changes. We all know that our plans would change. I think historically farmers probably have 10 or 15% of the crop. That could swing one way or the other. However, recently with the mega farming now, if you've got a 10 or 12 or 14,000 acre farmer, is he really going to want to switch 10%, 1,500 acres to more corn or than his rotation is? A lot of guys like that 50-50. The equipment is fine. They're set to do it. Another 1,500 acres of corn for a big farmer means he may have to hire somebody, more labor and men, machines, and money to do that. He's content with where he is. So whatever the NAS comes up with, they've been doing a better job than the previous years, and they have said that. You know, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we're going to take a look at our protocol and how we do this and improve things. Some of the NAS stuff has been in stocks. They've missed the stocks by 300-400 million bushels. Didn't tell us for 3 years. Price of corn would have been higher. They're doing a better job of it now, I believe.
One thing I've noticed over the years, because of your experience farming, it brings a whole other perspective into your analysis.
Yeah, I know how they think. I know how I think, and it's not all about, you know, the ratio of corn to soybeans. I've never used that in my life. It just turns out to be that's a pretty good end result. And for people that have never farmed, and sometimes I say I've never earned an honest living, but that's a little too much. But they'll look at it and say, from production agriculture, this is how the economic models look. This is what Jerry's going to do, and there's more to it. There's a market psychology that I'm not sure they enters in, and it's not their job to enter in there. Their job is to present the facts as they see them in the surveys, and the surveys are taken in the first part of March when sometimes we've had the February, you know, crop insurance. So that, like they all say, it can change, and of course, best laid plans of men and mice go down the tube sometimes, but.
When you started out this analysis business, there weren't many of you. Now it's a pretty crowded space out there. And after every report, we see the breathless analysis that we broadcasters breathlessly respond. One point that you've made, though, at various times is that we have a tendency to be too focused on U.S. numbers and don't have a feel for what's happening around the globe that can really direct prices.
Right. I can compete with my neighbor in the cost of production and so forth and land prices. But my prices and his are set by global supply and demand. And sometimes we look back and we're focused this year on a really tight stocks on corn and beans that may continue through the summer. You know that, I know that. Who doesn't know that? You know, the buyer out there knows that. Did he buy enough ahead? Did China buy stocks for strategic reserves for if we do get into a jam and we do something against China, then they're prepared for that. Their alliances now are more with China, with Brazil, and thus Argentina as well. So things have changed a lot. And I think being a farmer, I really tried to focus on, I don't raise livestock any longer, but our family did in North Dakota, but that's gone now, like many others. You look at what can that gentleman do that's going to buy my grain? Can he use it? Can he make money with it? If he can't make money at it, you know, years ago we said there's nothing you can do with $7 corn. Anybody can grow $8 corn in the world now. And so that's a factor that you got to know the other side of the equation.
Finally, in this moment remaining of this segment, as you look at South America's growth, its massive size and production, you know, we've been so focused in recent weeks on Argentina, and yet the Brazilians are bringing in big crops, big equipment, great expansion potential, I suppose, even yet. Does that have a chilling effect on your enthusiasm as a U.S. farmer? Well,
yes, in a way, because they're a big competitor, but you look at the total supply out there and the total usage. If we can get our economies turned around.
That's key, isn't it?
Yes, because I'll hear the negative people say, well, we've lost 10% of the world demand. But the world demand have got bigger. We're still selling more. So maybe at 37% of a bigger number was better than 47 or 50% of a smaller number. And I look at it one more from my standpoint. what's the cost of a new acre brought into production by our competition? It's not $3, it's not $4. So I look at it and say, if you're going to bring in more land for production, my land prices in my United States grew up, went higher, and that's part of our acceleration of land prices because we're going to have to sell maybe at a higher price as well. And we've seen this step up over the last 20 years. Of my first bushel was $1 a bushel I sold out of the farm, and the last bushel was $7.50. You know, so there we are.
There's a little more insight that Jerry will share later on in the broadcast. I'll ask him what he's recommending to farmers these days.
This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. The Firestone Ag Dealer Network offers you the support, inventory, and resources you need. Visit firestoneag.com to find your local certified dealer. We're going to talk markets, and the grain markets will no doubt be digesting those reports from the USDA on Friday over the next week. So we're going to talk cattle here with Dennis Smith of Archer Financial Services. Dennis, the cattle market had a pretty impressive rally this past week after those 2 weeks of outside market disruption. What's the market sense in the beef trade right now?
Yeah, boy, the market, April live cattle, fresh contract highs in the weekly that just traded, blasting through the up above 167. So the cash markets are expected to continue to firm higher. We had a 2-week pause in this bull market, and it was initiated by the banking crisis, fear, uncertainty, and that triggered a massive managed money liquidation, fund liquidation, if you want to call it that. Open interest in live cattle futures declined over 61,000 contracts during the, say, roughly 2 to 3 week period. That all seemed to stabilize this past week as the outside markets showed a lot of stability. We came in on a Monday morning, the market gapped higher and never filled that gap, and had a pause day on Tuesday of last week, and then the rally resumed. So it was a really impressive week of trade in live cattle futures.
So we've put those outside market concerns on the back burner. It's safe to say we're talking fundamentals in the cattle trade right now, Dennis, and the supply situation continues to tighten, does it not?
Yeah, the cattle on feed report, again, was a very friendly, if not bullish report. Placements during February down 6%. But again, the market completely ignored that for an entire week as we sorted through the banking crisis and we continued to absorb that managed money, that fund type selling. But yeah, the beef fundamentals are solid as far as declining production into what continues to be an impressive, strong demand situation for U.S. beef.
Well, let's talk about that demand situation a little bit here, Dennis. We've seen elevated meat prices in the meat counter for going on 3 years, but consumers are still willing to write the checks?
Yeah, the consumers at the restaurant level are still there. Recent reports, for example, out of Northwest Iowa reporting that by Friday night, restaurants completely sold out of prime rib, the most expensive cut available. So the restaurant industry continues to enjoy outstanding demand. Now, beef exports so far this year have been slower than a year ago, but keep in mind a year ago was an active pace. So we're sort of comparing with a real high bar as far as export business. Overall exports this year will be down from last year, but that doesn't mean it's a bad year. It just means not quite as good as it was last year.
With those nearby live cattle contracts pushing to fresh contract highs, Dennis, what are you watching in those nearby months as the next level of resistance?
Well, we're looking at the magic 170 area and then 172. So these are price levels that are really all-time high price levels going back to 2014, 2015. That's the next area. We've sort of positioned ourselves out of the deferreds and into the front end of the market. It seems like, Mike, this market is not able to build and hold a strong premium, unlike past bull markets we've seen in live cattle futures.
All right, and this all flows over to feeder cattle. We'll talk about that when we return. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and tire solutions for today. Welcome back. We're talking markets with Dennis Smith of Archer Financial Services. And Dennis, you mentioned the possibility of $170 fat cattle here in the near term. That's got to get cattle feeders excited. We've seen a rush for these feeder calves at sale barns. What do we need to be thinking about that segment of the industry?
Oh boy, yeah, the demand for feeders, lightweight feeders especially, driving prices sky high. The feeder board is reflecting this with deferred feeder contracts well above $200 a hundredweight. In fact, in the $220 per hundredweight price level. So the feeder board is anticipating higher prices as we march through the summer months. This has all got to be predicated upon the idea of grass becoming available, rain in the Midwest and in the western Great Plains, and in a sizable corn crop. In other words, lower corn prices and more availability of feed. So that's the bets that are being placed right now. But the demand for feeders, all weight categories, but especially it seems like the lightweights, sky high right now.
They're going crazy for them at sale barns. Dennis, are we seeing much division or change in the slaughter ratio between steers and heifers? Is anybody looking at rebuilding this herd yet? Can we tell?
No, not that we are aware of. At least it's not measurable just yet, maybe in portions of the country. But overall, we still think that the cows are being culled slower than the recent pace. We actually accelerated the culling pace late last year. So we still think we're culling some of the beef cows. The percentage of heifers in the feedlot is a record high. So there is no expansion currently in place, at least that we can measure right now.
Dennis, you mentioned the elevated price consumers are paying for beef. I imagine that looks attractive to beef importers. Is there the possibility more beef could be coming to our shores this year?
Well, we'll see. We're seeing a big influx of Brazilian beef right now, but they will meet the quota really quickly, and then that'll slow that import pace down. Beef from Mexico and Canada, but no, we're expecting nothing really dramatic as far as beef inflows. Nothing more than normal as far as imports of beef in the United States.
Dennis, before we let you go, the hog industry. I've heard thoughts that potentially it's growing. Is that what you're seeing out in the countryside?
That's not what I'm seeing at all. In fact, I just don't see any profits that would initiate any sort of meaningful expansion. So we're looking at that and evaluating, but I would not expect any expansion in the hog industry.
That's Dennis Smith, Archer Financial Services.
On Friday, USDA released two closely watched reports that have surprised traders in the past: the Prospective Plantings Report and the March quarterly grain stocks. From the Plantings Report, USDA expects to see 91.9 million acres of corn planted in 2023. That's up 2.5 million from last year. Soybeans are expected to see 87.5 million acres seeded. That's down nearly 3.5 million acres from the year before. All wheat acres are expected to be up to 49.9 million, while a decrease is expected in cotton plantings by 1 million acres to 11.3 million. In the quarterly stocks report, tighter supplies on hand for both corn and beans. 7.4 billion bushels on hand for corn. That was tighter than the trade's expectation. And in soybeans, 1.685 billion bushels reported in that March grain stocks report, again below the trade's expectation. Wheat came in slightly higher than the trade was expecting, totaling 946 million bushels in this latest report.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by Copperhead Ag Products. Visit copperheadag.com for more information. With frost coming out of the ground, farmers across the country are gearing up for work on their operations. Chad Colby has a friend of his using some new technology to get that work done.
I love when technology makes a great addition to a farm, especially on a do-it-yourself project like this. I caught up with good friends of mine who decided to take on a project themselves instead of hiring it done.
So Craig, talk a little bit about the automation you have working over there.
Yeah, so we have a ditching software here that can be used for, you can set different grades. So right here in this scenario, we're building a pad for a new building, and you can just set the grade to 0, and it'll control if you hit this button, it'll take over and control the height of the scraper based on your elevation. And Just takes all the operator air out of it and keeps the guy from having to run around with a grade stick, and really works well.
We're obviously in an ag tractor.
Yep.
Talk about how easy it is to outfit any tractor with this. I know you guys did this on some row crop John Deere tractors, and of course we're in a Steiger here.
Yep.
How easy is it to configure your tractor if you've got a little project like this and you want to do it yourself?
Yeah, so it's all plug and play. Just there's a different harness for a case and a different harness for a Deere, but there's a port already on the tractor, and you plug right into that, and it's ready to go.
So I do notice we've got a green receiver on your scraper, and the harness will allow you to work with different systems.
Yep, you get the harness for whichever GPS system you're using.
So tell us what you're building here today too. I can kind of see a little bit of a format here. New shop, I assume?
Yep, new cold storage building. So
it probably made your dad proud when you said, "Dad, let's just do this ourselves." Huh?
Yeah, I was like, hey, we have the technology to do it, and we have the guys. So
what's been the biggest challenge this spring getting this job done?
Definitely the weather. Springtime's not the best time of year to build a pad, but that's the time we needed to do to get it done, get the building.
What advice would you have for someone who might be considering doing this for the first time or buying the first system? Any tips? Anything you've learned here over the years?
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a learning curve, but one thing I've learned that this system really shines on is just surface drainage. It's a big maintenance thing that not a lot of people pay attention to, and it really helps you in the spring. Surface drainage and tile go hand in hand. So.
And that's really how you got started with this, right?
Yep.
Wait, was there some sweet talking involved to your father the first time? Or?
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really good. Well, hey, thanks for showing me a little more technology. This is pretty awesome.
Yep, it's fun.
Craig went on to share a few more details about the system, its ease of use. He bought it from a company in North Dakota called SD Drain. And let me tell you, I was very, very impressed. If you got to look into doing some surface drainage, this is a great system. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Well, thank you, Chad, for that story.
If I had a scraper, I'd want to be using it. Put that technology on there and use that scraper. Absolutely. There's more coming up on This Week in Agribusiness. A little bit later on, Greg Solier checks the weather. How wintry will it be in the weeks ahead? Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Are you ready for Charlie's tour of whatever state he selects next?
I'm always ready to learn more about the agricultural states of America with our friend Charlie Behrens in Pivot Bio. This week, he's taking us out west, not quite all the way, about halfway to Colorado.
The United States of America can be very different from one state to another, but one thing every state has in common is agriculture.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Behrens and welcome to the Agricultural States of America. We're going to test your knowledge about the agriculture of different states and hopefully give you a bit of appreciation for all of the great things that farmers are producing across America. Today we're headed to the Centennial State to see what agriculture looks like in Colorado. Now when you think of Colorado, you probably think of the Rocky Mountains, the Red Rock Amphitheater, Colorado Trail, skiing, snowboarding, hiking, and the rich tales of the Wild West. Or maybe some more recreational, I don't know. However, the agricultural industry is crucial to the state's economy by bringing in around $47 billion annually and producing a variety of products. Some of the top agricultural products and commodities in the state are cattle and calves, goats, hogs, dairy products, corn, hay, and wheat. Now, Colorado is consistently in the top 10 nationally for the production of barley, alfalfa, hay, wheat, grain, sorghum, sheep and lambs, potatoes, sunflower and foliage plants, proso millet, and even peaches. In other words, Colorado, ideal state to get the munchies in. Now, there was one thing in that list that you may not know off the top of your head. Proso millet. No need to Google it. I got you covered. Proso millet is a grain crop with a variety of uses, including birdseed, animal feed, and cover crop. But recently, a new market has emerged, and it can be used as an organic, gluten-free grain. Now, Colorado's reputation precedes itself when it comes to peaches. The Palisade peach, which is Colorado's official state fruit, is said to be sweeter than the Georgia peach. And before you Georgians say, them's 5 words, don't blame me. I just read it on Wikipedia, okay? And I know they say that you can't compare apples to oranges, but peaches are another story. How about them apples? The unique flavor of the Palisade peach is due to Colorado's climate, which has warm days and cool nights. This temperature change intensifies the sugars in the peaches and therefore the sweetness. Now, as to the question is who makes the better peach cobbler, that will have to be decided in a cook-off competition, and I volunteer as judge. Colorado grows these peaches on the western slope, but they don't stop there. They've got many other fruit orchards, such as apples, cherries, and apricots. And Colorado is the only U.S. state to lie entirely above 3,280 feet in elevation, which makes it the nation's highest state. And let's let the record show that I passed up on a marijuana joke here. Now, Colorado's elevation, geography, and climate play an interesting role in the quality and uniqueness of the state's crops. Just like how it affects the peaches, the same can be said for their grapes. Colorado's vineyards are the highest elevation of any vineyard in the U.S. at 4,000 and 7,000 feet above sea level. Nationally and internationally acclaimed Colorado wines are often made with traditional Vitis vinifera grapes. Some of the state's wines are also made from cherries, peaches, plum, and honey too, which is where Colorado got its unofficial slogan. If it's growing on a tree, in a hive, or on a vine, we're making wine. I just made that up. Rounding out on all that Colorado has to offer is a variety of specialty crops. The state's farmers raise bison, elk, ostrich, grow mushrooms, Anasazi beans, and even hemp. As a result of this agricultural diversity, you may have been able to enjoy some of these famous Colorado foods like Rocky Ford cantaloupe or Pueblo cherries, craft beer, and not to be forgotten, Rocky Mountain oysters. Word to the wise, save those suckers for date nights. Natural aphrodisiac. Google that and thank me later. All right, that's all the time we have for now, but you can always go to pivotbio.com/agstates, click on the show icon and explore more about the agriculture of your favorite states and test your knowledge to win great prizes and more. I'm Charlie Behrens, and we'll see you next time on the Agricultural States of America.
As always, Charlie, thank you for that update from Colorado. Max, you know, he highlighted the importance of livestock in the state of Colorado. Certainly a lot of production. They also do quite a bit of shows out there in Colorado, don't they?
You know, the National Western Stock Show comes along every January, and people have taken great pride in that. We hear from Mary in Denver all the time about the National Western Stock Show, and it's quite a festival. In addition to putting the livestock in the spotlight, and they have new facilities. They are expanding. They have great plans for the future. The dates for that show in 2024, I know Mary would want me to mention, January 6th through the 21st. It spans all of those days, pumps a lot of money into the Denver economy. So those folks, rightfully so, are quite proud of the National Western.
Have you had a chance to go to the National Western, Max?
Many years ago. It's been quite some time, but you know, it's been there 117 years or 116 years, something like that.
Yes.
So it's had an effect for quite a while.
Absolutely. There's a group of folks from Iowa who take the train to Denver every year for the National Western. I've always thought that would be a fun trip to do and see those animals up close.
It would be. A longtime friend of mine, the late Bill Couch, was a judge there for many, many years. We grew up together, and I was always hearing about the National Western. Oh, and Charlie mentioned Proso millet. That one is on the radar screen. That crop, we have a lot of folks who wonder about a crop that can be drought hardy. There's more coming up on This Week in Agribusiness. Stay here with us. This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Welcome back here to This Week in Agribusiness. We're sure glad you've joined us this weekend. We do love iron, big iron.
We certainly do, Max. That is true, and that's not just us. I think that's a trait of all farmers, and it was on display at Commodity Classic earlier this year. Lots of big machinery from a lot of different manufacturers, and Fendt was on hand. They were unveiling their Fendt 200 series tractor, a little bit more manageable in size. Nick Farfsing filled us in.
We just launched the Fendt 200 Vario Series tractor in Tulare, California World Ag Expo just a few weeks ago. It comes in 4 variants. There's kind of a standard variant, your typical loader tractor, but what's really unique about it is there's 3 variants that are all more narrow than that, perfect for vineyards, orchards, specialty crops, things like that. It ranges from 94 to 114 horsepower. It has CVT transmission, Fendt 1 cab experience, so it is a Fendt through and through, but it is this small, maneuverable little tractor. Like all Fendt tractors, it comes with our Gold Star customer care, which is a no-deductible 3-year, 3,000-hour warranty, all service included, and a loaner guarantee, so it's got a lot to offer.
We've also got the 700 series, and I'm wondering what's new there. What can you tell us about the 700 series, Fendt?
Yeah, sure. So the Fendt 700 series is our most popular series across the globe. We launched the Gen 7 version of that last year. It's kind of that 200 to 300 horsepower range tractor. This version has a larger engine, more hydraulic capacity, and actually an overall larger frame as well. So it's kind of our like do everything on the farm tractor. Used for hay. It's used for any row crop application that you have. It's really kind of I wouldn't call it a utility tractor, but used for just about anything on the farm, right? And it also backed by our Gold Star customer care, which is very valuable to farmers. It's this all-in price. You don't got to worry about anything for 3 years, basically, right? And then last thing I want to say, super proud, AE50 2023 Tractor of the Year was awarded to it. So,
well, Nick, there's certainly been a number of people climbing in and out of that massive Ideal Combine here in the Fendt booth. What do they notice when they climb up there? What's new this year?
Yeah, so there's really 2 big things that are new. One is the in-cab experience. We've really enhanced that. So there's a new wireless charger, there's a new holder for your iPad, and then there's an enhanced refrigerator. So for those long days of harvesting, it's perfect. And then the other thing is the unloading auger height has been increased. So we heard from some farmers who are unloading in some pretty hilly conditions that it just wasn't quite up to snuff. So we listened to our customers and we enhanced that.
Our thanks to Nick for talking with us. That Ideal Combine sure had people climbing in and out all day long. If you want to learn more, visit Fendt.com.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. So often when we talk with Greg and look at that national weather map, it's a study of contrasts, a great contrast. And that's the case right now, isn't it?
That's right, even more so accentuated by springtime. And I tell you, it's going to be an action-packed one. Already is across parts of the heartland. Of course, the severe weather last week from Texas into Mississippi. And the culprit, we just continue to propagate and watch these waves come in way up out of the Gulf of Alaska. They carve themselves out into the Pacific Northwest, drop into the southwestern states. The good side of things, the positive side of things, we continue to make good inroads. It's late, though, with snow, but the runoff prospects are very nice in the Pacific Northwest, continuing to make some improvement there, along with drought issues across the northern plains. There's another late season snow event, rain to snow, not to mention the cold last week, the cold this week. What is it, about 55–60% of lambing operations complete across North Dakota, a little less than that on the calving side of things. In any event, here's one weather system kicking out of the Black Hills north and eastward. Right on its heels, another one, another round of snowfall. The snow's been on the ground across Grand Forks, east across northern and central Minnesota since the beginning part of November. And here's another significant weather system for the end portion of the week into northern California and the Pacific Northwest. These systems come ashore, they deepen, they sharpen up, they generate cold air aloft, and we actually get some additional thunderstorm activity into California, and it is wet out there. San Joaquin River, highest it's been since about 2017. And there's some indication that this week we may actually get some significant rain and snow into some of the worst drought areas that have been missed over Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. There's one weather system. Another one kicks on out with snow to the north, showers and thunderstorms heavy and severe down south. And speaking of heavy and severe, Max, once again, cold core low, daytime heating, severe weather into parts of central and southern California, would you believe?
My. It appears there's no relief relief for that California weather crisis then.
That's right. Again, we've talked about it week by week, from a drought to a flood, and the story continues on there. It's a pretty benign but cold start to the week across the Dakotas, the upper Midwest, kind of a weak boundary making its way across the Corn Belt areas. We are wet, we are saturated. The Wabash is running pretty high across central and southwestern Indiana, along with area streams and rivers into central and southern Illinois. And we will add to it. First, it's a northbound warm front. On its heels, a cold front, a double barrel low, and a broad southwest to northeast jet stream pattern. Hint right here. More moist, good coverage moisture. Nebraska, and rain and showers and thunderstorms into the central and southern Corn Belt. Probably heavy and severe, as we saw mid to late last week. It will be a very probably accentuated severe weather season across the heartland with time. More severe weather early in the week across the Delta. Cleanup and recovery in this corridor from 24 tornadoes and fatalities last week. Another strong cold front deepening low and a jet stream pattern that buckles across the Lone Star State. Swings to the north and northeast with showers and thunderstorms here. Moisture for Oklahoma and Kansas. On the flip side, colder side to max. Little snow into the mountains of New Mexico.
Planters are rolling, to be sure. They've made real good progress planting corn in Texas.
Yes.
Saw some planters on the move in North Carolina, for example.
Yeah,
what will the weather be like then for those folks in the eastern part of the
almost
country?
60% of the corn, I think, is in the ground down there through Texas. And so, yeah, there's opportunity here. High pressure mid-Atlantic region early in the week. Windy weather system, a weak one in through the Great Lakes region, northern and central Corn Belt. That'll skedaddle off to the north and east. Later in the week, a buckling jet stream and the showers and thunderstorms get going. Michigan on southward, snow melt to the upper Midwest, and west of this cold front across the Dakotas. It is the likelihood of some late season snow. Watch the specter of severe weather again, central and southern parts of the Midwest and Corn Belt. Boundary across Florida, boy, we are dry and drought ridden here. Quiet high pressure, maybe a nip of frost across the inlet areas of the Carolinas. The next weather system down through Oklahoma and Texas early in the week. By the middle to late parts of the week, we rush warmer air in. Jet stream buckling across areas of the lower Mississippi Valley. Showers and thunderstorms heavy and severe from the Delta on northward, with colder air but moisture as well into the southern plains late in the week.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. We've noticed many years, if you can get some late moisture into those winter wheat fields of the Plain States, it really can make a difference. We wonder if that's going to happen this year.
It will in some of the areas that have been shortchanged. You know, we talk about a line roughly from about North Platte down to Oklahoma City and east, where we've had improvement. Unfortunately, comes at a price with some of that severe weather over the southeastern plains. And this weekend, while there will be some snow and ice potential, we do come up with maybe upwards of an inch water equivalency into the worst drought areas of Nebraska, Kansas as well. Note the severe weather potential again from Texas sweeping into the central and southern Corn Belt. Lighter moisture for the eastern states. Some opportunity for field work here. Cornfields and pasture lands will appreciate the rain in through Texas. And again, with time, heavy moisture here propagating into the southern and central valleys of California. And those systems will continue their swing with this large scale trough over the middle part of the country, Max, for the week to come and the weeks to come.
Well, you get past Easter, folks are getting the itch more and more to work in the field, and will it be warm enough?
It should be warm enough. A nice recovery, a little warmth into the soils, but those windows of opportunity, there's the phrase that will pay here. We'll talk about it a lot. They may be small little peak holes, I think, this early to middle part of the springtime season. But look at this contrast of temperatures. Midwinter here, almost early to midsummer from the Ohio on southward. Jet stream right on top, and you're off to the races. Showers and thunderstorms heavy and severe. Texas, drought relief at least here across the plains, sweeping into the northeast and New England with widespread significant moisture. Late season snows for the Dakotas, back to the Pacific Northwest, a little drier area where we need the moisture max down through Florida.
Well, for the week of the 17th, if they have the opportunity, there'd be many more planters moving. However,
yeah, well, depends on your tile lines and dry days, putting them together. You know, if we can get some warmth and get some wind, it's amazing how some of these soils can improve, along with the technological improvements here in the recent decades. Well, here's the warmth all the way into the northeast of New England. There's snow melt underway there. Things will be hopping and popping to the Ohio Valley, but note the cold air in the trough trough over the western half of the country, the jet stream right across the Missouri Valley. And look at this moisture. It's late, but still coming into California, into the Pacific Northwest. A very hyperactive weather pattern across the heartland, into the Corn Belt, into the Northeast, into New England, drying out across the Gulf Coast area. Maybe some opportunity to assess some of those waterlogged fields and where severe weather is played on out.
As we were referring earlier, those temperature contrasts can really stir up the storms. How do you see that last week of the month of April?
Well, you know, sometimes we think about that warm air, and it is a contributing factor to generating severe weather, but it's the intrusion of cold air that gets those clouds to build, and you're off to the races with showers and thunderstorms. Kind of a fragmented, warm summer ridge from the southwest into the southeastern part of the country. This trough is flattened out, but at the same time, winds are strengthening. The cold air is still there over the northern part of the country, and you get this result drying out. Maybe we need it in California, the central and southern areas, down through Texas, the Gulf Coast areas. The likelihood of late season snow for Big Sky Country. Plenty of planting delays with more heavy weather for much of the Corn Belt, the Northeast, and New England.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
We've heard plenty of stories over the years where they were unable to find Dad's tractor. However, I have a success story to share with you in Max's Tractor Shed, brought to you by Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants, they are made to make it last. Well, Leland Crane in eastern Missouri recalls very well the first time that he drove the tractor. 50 years ago, he shared with me, his dad put him on the Farmall M, had him go across the field with that M, and warned him, turn before you get to that seep hole at the end. Leland said he didn't turn soon enough. He hung up the tractor and the disc he was pulling, but he said, I only did it one time in that field. Let's take a closer look at that tractor. It got out of the family. It was bought by a neighbor, and Leland said several times over the years he approached that neighbor about buying it, but the guy said no. Well, the gentleman passed away, and his widow sold that tractor back to Leland. Off and on, over the past year, Leland worked on that Farmall M, fixing things that needed attention after more than 70 years. Then he started the real restoration before Christmas, and finally, just about a month ago, Leland Crane drove that restored tractor out of the shop. And in his words now, it was a wonderful moment. I suspect some of you can identify with Mr. Crane's experience getting back into the family and fixing up an old tractor, just like Leland's Farmall M at Philadelphia, Missouri. Mark Stock doesn't care what the color is. He loves to see quality equipment moving across the block, and they sell a great lineup of equipment every week at Big Iron Auctions. Here's Mark now with his weekly report.
Well, Max, we kick off April with an outstanding lineup of farm machinery retirement sales at Sullivan Auctioneers and BigIron.com. The Bill Sullivan Retirement Sale takes place on Monday, April the 3rd, 10 o'clock in the morning. Case IH Equipment Magnum 340 mechanical front, Magnum 275, Case IH 8940, and a Case IH Puma 145 tractor will be the headliners on his sale, all low-houred machines. On April the 5th, Bernard Camphouse is retiring from O'Neill, Nebraska. He's got a 2016 Mack Dawn self-propelled windrower. Check out the Collector Tractor International 4166. Also a late model 2017 Case IH Maxim 125 tractor with a loader. On Thursday, April the 6th, the Charles Jeffrey Reby Farm Estate Sale in Petersburg, Illinois features 99 items, late model John Deere equipment, an S670 combine, 9470R four-wheel drive tractor, 4630 self-propelled sprayer, 1775 16-row 30 planter, all excellent condition. Also on Thursday, April the 6th, Augustine Farms are retiring by Columbus, Nebraska. They have a John Deere 9560 combine, John Deere 8320 mechanical front tractor. This equipment is outstanding as well. Visit Sullivan Auctioneers and BigIron.com if you're looking for quality equipment selling with no reserve.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. And now it's time to meet that next generation of leader for American agriculture. This week, we're talking with Hunter Smigel. He serves as the Vice President for the New York FFA. And Hunter, thanks for joining us this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to be here.
What was it that prompted you to join FFA that first time, Hunter?
Yeah, sure. So really, what prompted me to join FFA for the first time was encouragement, definitely from the ag teachers at Greenville, and as well as my parents and past family members who have been in FFA before.
And Hunter, what was it in FFA that you were passionate about? What activities did you find that really jumped out at you?
Sure. So I really, like personally, I found my place in a lot of the leadership development events that FFA has to offer. And, you know, not growing up necessarily having an agriculture background at home, you know, there's a lot of education that's involved in FFA, but I kind of found my place in public speaking competitions like extemporaneous public speaking.
And what was it about FFA that made you want to join the leadership ranks, Hunter?
Sure. So really, I was joined FFA, you know, in 6th grade, and in 7th grade when I went to my second FFA convention, and I, you know, really that first time I was like, what quite is going on here? But that second year, really getting to take it all in and enjoy all those different experiences that FFA has at the convention. And what really stood out to me a whole lot was the retiring addresses of some of the state officers that were there. And, you know, they kind of gave me some words of encouragement and a lot of words that I kind of hold true today. And, you know, it's just kind of that idea that they gave so much to me, I guess, and this organization gave so much to me, and I wanted to be able to return the favor a little bit and give back.
Hunter, as you look out to the rest of your term as vice president, what are you excited about?
Well, as the year, you know, it's winding down, but it's not quite over yet. In May, actually May 18th to 20th is our state convention. So it's really state convention time, and we're starting to get prepped for that and get ready, and it's exciting. But yeah, so that's what the rest of the year really looks like.
Hunter, as you go forward, do you hope to find a career in agriculture?
Yeah, I do. So I plan on attending SUNY Cobleskill next year for ag business, or Buffalo, but leaning towards SUNY Cobleskill at the moment for ag business. And then from there, going to law school and being an ag business attorney.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. That's Hunter Smigel from New York, FFA.
We wanted to share a little more of our visit with veteran industry analyst Jerry Golke, who's watched the markets for many years for farmers. You saw his grandsons, Foxy and Jennings, there, as Jerry was at his producer meeting earlier this week, and we came in and asked him about what he's learned over all of these years of advising farmers and what he shares with the growers these days. One of those things in this era of high interest rates is that cash is king.
Well, I think I've always been adverse to debt, I guess. I learned it from my father, who went through the Depression, and he said, they took my dad's farm, they're not taking mine. So I remember not eating ice cream or going on a vacation to pay for land, and when it was done, then we celebrated. But it's like, it kind of, good or bad or indifferent, it kind of helped. I've always felt that cash is king. If it isn't, it's going to be at sometime, and we're going to see that now again, I think.
It's going to be tough, isn't it?
Yes,
for some?
yeah, I think, and when you look at, you know, 1980 was a year, and they say, well, interest rates were 9 and 10 and 12% like that. I had some of those loans at 10%. I got an education, and but we didn't have the asset value like we do now. So now when you're done paying that interest bill, you have to pay for that with that land payment or a machinery payment that's been depreciated out. Now you got to have net cash flow after tax to pay for that. People that are building houses, buying houses to get a salary, they're going to understand that pretty quick too if they want to trade up. So that's the whole idea behind our Fed lowering it, raising rates to make it more difficult. And that's coming, I don't think, hasn't come to a head yet. There aren't many people out there that are as low as I am. They want to go back to 2008. 1980 is a whole lot better education. So I've tried to keep that focused. And there are times when you see high prices for grain, and then you got to ask yourself, who's going to use it here? How much do you want at $7 corn and $15 beans? You want it to go to 16 so you get another opportunity. That tells you the world can use that. When you curb demand, you got a problem. The final thing is to look at market prices and have an outlook that's valid, not just I think, or what somebody on chat box might say. But you want to find yourself not in the place of having to sell grain like we're at currently. $6 for corn out of the field. That's a far cry from what I got just 9 months ago. You know, $1.50 a bushel, whether it's basis or whatever, times 200 bushels is $300 an acre. That's gone right now. And it could be worse because December corn's even 50 cents a bushel less than that. So you got to really look at it and part company with it. In doubt, I remember building my grain bins and looking down at the house at them and said, you know, here it is, December 1st. I just got done. I want to hug that grain bin. As the worst thing that could happen to me is fall in love with my production.
You've pointed out that it's an opportunity farmers have that many corporations do not, to be able to price in advance.
We are blessed with that, and we just hope that the government doesn't want to take that over as well. But think what Tesla would do and what General Motors would do and what John Deere would do if they could lock in the profit on their total production, produce more, lock it in, sit on it, watch it go down, who cares? And I've got it locked in. They don't have that avenue yet. They do in some cases, but like maybe Hershey does, or maybe like General Mills, price goes up, they just pass it on to the consumer. We can't do that. We don't get 40% of a dollar sold. They can raise the price of a Hershey bar or make it smaller. And so they don't have a risk management program because they don't need it. They can control. But we do, and it's a grand opportunity to build a factory, look at it and say, if I sell it for $7 a bushel for next year or whatever, we had that opportunity, then I'm just going to produce it and walk it out the door and clip coupons. And we have a lot of clients that do that. They're out 3 years on some of this stuff. Not on my advice, but they have the bank and they have the money, and that's why the rich get richer, the poor get poorer.
Jerry Gohlke with a great background of the agriculture industry and sharing his expertise with growers all over the country. I think he's done it for more than 40 years, Mike.
Yeah, a lot of enthusiasm for the industry still, Max.
Yeah, by all means. We'll share some of our enthusiasm again with you next week right here on This Week in Agribusiness. We thank you for coming by to join us. Until next time, be careful. Have a safe week. So long, everyone. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.